What is a superstition anyway? And what is a fact? Are all superstitions true, or are just some of them true?
Hi, I'm Ollie DiStefano. I almost have an undergraduate degree in philosophy. As a philosopher, the nature of truth is very important to me. So, I set out to discover it for myself. There are a couple of definitions of truth. 1. Quality or state of being true. 2. That which is true or in accordance with reality. And 3. A fact or belief which is accepted as true. That last definition got me thinking. Is anything that is accepted to be true actually true? I mean, what about cults? If enough people believe in something, does that make it true?
I went through something I don't wish upon anybody, and I'm still trying to figure it out. How could I have ended up in a cult?
A self-help program called NXIVM, designed to improve your life.
That can't be right. But as a student of reason, I had to find out. Charles Manson is, unfortunately, dead, so I can't interview him, and Tom Cruise won't return my calls, and NXIVM is terrifying. Is there anyone else out there that has ridiculous beliefs? Who can help me in my search for truth?
He will not come out if there's one non-believer. Are you all believers in Phil? Put your hands in the air. Repeat after me. All hail groundhog supremacy. All hail groundhog supremacy.
Every year, the Groundhog Club's Inner Circle is responsible for carrying out the medieval tradition of Groundhog Day, where Punxsutawney Phil is brought out of his burrow to see if his shadow will predict the coming of spring. Surely, these people don't believe in the meteorological clairvoyance of a rodent. I reached out to the Inner Circle for an interview, since Phil is the most famous groundhog. But we were unable to come to an agreement with their agent. Still, I am desperate to uncover the nature of truth. Surely there must be someone nearby who can provide insight.
So look, I think in Marion we are well aware of these other prognosticators on Groundhog Day. We know they exist, but we think that our groundhog, Buckeye Chuck, has a much higher percentage of predicting the coming of spring better than anybody else. There's that.
That's right. We went straight to the top. I got an exclusive interview with the mayor of Marion, Ohio, home of Ohio's foremost animal prognosticator, Buckeye Chuck.
Woke up this morning in my cozy burrow. Hibernating in winter to survive the cold.
I'd heard that the groundhog uses some sort of psychic abilities to predict the weather. I pressed the mayor for more information.
We know, statistically speaking, since Chuck started doing this in the 1970s, that he has been right 75% of the time. I would venture to guess that Chuck is every bit as much as right as your evening weather newscaster on your favorite channel.
A bold claim, especially considering the evidence that Chuck has only been right twice in the past 15 years. It seemed to me like the mayor had a vested interest in upholding this myth. So, we sought out a man of numbers and letters, like myself, James Anderson, park naturalist.
Now, how my job kind of utilizes with Buckeye Chuck is I've been part of the prediction for the last 5 years. I mean, they say that I think the Buckeye prediction is about, 50, 60%. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think at least that's what some of the people are saying.
May seem that way to the people of Marion, but the thermometer tells a different story.
Well, we studied the United States weather reports for the last 10 years for our state. Then we organized our material.
And this is a good job of research. For every Groundhog Day or February 2nd, the weather was listed. If it was fair, the groundhog would have seen his shadow. And if it was cloudy, he couldn't have seen his shadow. But shadow or not, the temperature never varied more than 2 degrees from normal. The groundhog had nothing to do with spring weather.
Mike Venos, an avid groundhog enthusiast and fellow man of science, seems to think these Marionites might be lying to themselves.
I don't know that most people actually believe that the animal is predicting the weather. It seems like it's usually a fun thing that people are buying into. They go and they play along. It's always been the same Punxsutawney Phil, according to their lore.
As the story goes, there has been only one Punxsutawney Phil, a yearly sip of groundhog punch, keeping him alive for 7 more years. The recipe? A secret, of course.
Now, the one Punxsutawney Phil, that fun tradition is he is the original one, and they give him a special Kool-Aid or a special juice to make him live as long. So, but we all know that's probably not true.
Kool-Aid, Kool-Aid.
For the very best drink you ever made.
Kool-Aid, Kool-Aid.
Be sure that the envelope says Kool-Aid.
Now that's interesting. What about Buckeye Chuck? Does he also have the power to live forever?
We like to compare Buckeye Chuck to a little bit like Santa Claus. We kind of think that the Buckeye Chuck that we use today is the same Buckeye Chuck from the 1970s when Charlie Evers saw him crawling out of his hole to check things out there in early February. But the original Buckeye Chuck probably has been gone for a long time. They only live for about 6 to 8 years in captivity.
Despite this controversy, it seems like the practice is alive and well in the town of Marion without much resistance from cynics and truth seekers like myself.
2010, Buckeye Chuck proclaims that spring is upon us!
So then I had to wonder, why does this town still celebrate something so blatantly false?
Buckeye Chuck was actually created by a radio personality in the 1970s by the name of Charlie Evers. Unfortunately, Charlie Evers passed away just about a year ago.
Charlie has done more than just Buckeye Chuck. He has created so many different types of fundraisers. He was a really good friend of mine, and he is a radio broadcast legend here in the state of Ohio. And what he has told me is he wanted our own state groundhog because Punxsutawney Phil out in Pennsylvania, he's all famous for that, for the prediction. And he's like, no, you know what? Ohio needs its own groundhog. So let's do our own thing.
I knew we had to know more about this Charlie fellow. So we set out to interview his widow, Jean.
And he was such a humble person. I mean, he didn't brag. He didn't really do anything. He just brought so much to the community. I mean, with everything he did, and so much history. I mean,
as Jean spoke about her husband, I could feel my cynicism fade. There was something about the tenderness in her voice and her willingness to so graciously welcome a complete stranger into her home. I was starting to second-guess my approach to this entire endeavor. Maybe what we believe isn't always about the facts.
Well, myths are a lot like, they become legends, and clearly Charlie Evers is a legend in our community, and it also keeps the memory of him alive.
When you mention Buckeye Chuck, they automatically think of Charlie. So glad he got to start so many traditions in Marion County, Ohio. Charlie Evers was a wonderful icon here in Marion County, and I sure do miss him.
So, my search for truth had led me to this. The story of one man whose legacy shaped a community. This is not a story of fact versus fiction, but somewhere in the middle. Maybe our beliefs are what give power to truth. And maybe sometimes, that's enough.